Many years ago, I read a report on stress in the workplace. And what this report identified was that the single biggest cause of stress in the workplace is not the amount of work you have to do. It is not the hours you have to work. It is when, because of the environment and the culture of the people around you, you are forced to do your job in a way that does not come naturally to you. Because that is the definition of stress, being forced to operate in a way that is not the way you would choose to. And we all know when we're undergoing that stress, and that is the single biggest signal that says, get the fuck out.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Embracing Only podcast with Olivia and Archita. I am thrilled, and you can see it on my face, so excited to have Cindy Gallop with us here today. She's a trailblazing entrepreneur, brand innovator, and advocate for social change with over 3 decades of experience in advertising and brand building. She's known for her disruptive approach. Cindy describes herself as the Michael Bay of business, always ready to challenge the status quo. And you know, Olivia and I love to do that in every single one of our episodes. Cindy, you've been described as a woman who will change the way you think about sex and money, but that's just scratching the surface. You're the alchemist, turning advertising's lead into gold, the voice shouting, show me the money, to a VC world that seems to have misplaced its checkbook when it comes to female founders. And after a notable career as chair of BBH New York, Cindy, you ventured into entrepreneurship, funding Make Love Not Porn, a groundbreaking social sextech platform. And now she's taking on her most ambitious project yet, the Make Love Not Porn Academy, and EdTech G-Dubs, the Khan Academy of sex education for under 18-year-olds. This new venture aims to revolutionize sex education by aggregating resources from global sex educators and effectively promoting them to young people. And Cindy is currently seeking $20 million in funding to develop this platform alongside other initiatives, including a safe sexting app and an ad tech platform. So thank you so much for being here, Cindy, and we're ready to dive right in and pick through your school of thought, where conventional wisdom is an oxymoron and disruption on just any given Tuesday.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
So excited to have you here. So Olivia's going to kick us off here as we get started with our questions.
Yeah. So jumping right into it, Cindy, again, we're thrilled to have you here. So I think the first thing that drew me to you was you famously said, and I quote, "I like to blow shit up. I am the Michael Bay of business." What entrenched norms in advertising and tech are you currently targeting for disruption?
Sure. So I will just explain to our listeners where that soundbite came from and the importance of it, because basically, a number of years ago, I was talking to some potential consultancy clients about my approach to consulting. And I said to them, I consult very selectively, only for clients and brands who want to change the game in their particular sector. So you come to me for radical, innovative, groundbreaking, transformative. I don't do status quo. And then I lightheartedly, off the cuff, went, I like to blow shit up. I'm the Michael Bay of business. And everyone laughed. And I left the room and I thought, actually, that is a very good way of characterizing what I do. And so I've been using that tagline ever since. But I use that line not as a bit of creativity, a bit of whimsy, a bit of fun. I use it entirely deliberately because I'm a big believer in be your own filter. When I characterize what I do in that way, it attracts to me the people who want what I do. It repels the ones who don't. And I want to repel the ones who don't because they're a waste of time, effort, and money. So I recommend to our listeners, be your own filter. Put what you are out there. You will attract your tribe to you, and you will keep away the people who are not for you. And that being said, all that line does is it sums up my general approach to life. So no, I don't go around looking for shit to blow up. I just live and work my values every day. And it's an indictment on the rest of the world that all too often means disrupting the status quo.
I so love that. And I feel like I just want to piggyback on this just a little bit because Archita and I talk about alignment and authenticity so often. And there's so many women that are so afraid of walking in their own authenticity. And we say, ladies, we want to shake them. If you don't be your authentic self, you're not going to attract the network, the village that you need to go on this journey. So I think this is just another example of just that. And to transition to the second question here, you speak about aligning your values a lot and kind of chasing a path that is aligned with those values that you set for yourself that seem to be the cornerstone of the work that you do. And specifically, you advocate for a business model that you describe as shared values plus shared actions equals shared profits, right? So can you talk to us a little bit about how organizations can effectively identify and align on values that most matter to them? And maybe part two of that, how individuals can do the same if their organization seems to be going left and they want to go right.
Sure. So let me start with individuals, because honestly, for me, this is the starting point for everything. I want to say to our listeners, if you've never conducted this exercise, take a long, hard look into yourself and identify what you stand for, what you believe in, what you value, what you're all about. And when you do, that makes life so much simpler. Because life still throws at you all the shit it always will, but you know exactly how to deal with that shit in any given scenario in a way that is true to you. And that really is the secret of happiness, living your life and working your work in a way that is always true to you, true to your values. And I actually recommend to businesses that they do exactly the same thing. Take a long, hard look into yourself as a business and identify the reason you were founded in the first place, what you stand for, what your values are, what your values should be if you've lost sight of them over the years. And those should absolutely inform the way that you operate on a daily basis. And so when I identified my business model of the future, which is shared values plus shared action equals shared profit, financial profit and social profit, what I mean by that is when brands and businesses come together with their constituents, their audiences, and that can be consumers, it can be employees, analysts, when you come together on the basis of values that you all share, which is the most important requirement for a good relationship in life as much as business, you will never truly bond with anyone if you don't share the same values. When you come together around shared values and you are then able to collectively and collaboratively co-act on those values, to walk the talk together, you can make things happen in the real world that will benefit consumers, benefit employees, benefit society, and benefit the brand and its business. And so I really recommend to everyone that you only work for companies with whom you share the same values, because otherwise you are not going to progress in that company and you will not be happy within that company either.
Ding, ding, ding to all of those 1000%, and feel so aligned on that. And share a little bit about being an immigrant into the US. A lot of times the values you come in with are values that you've built from like your parents that they've given you. You come into like these values of a company that you originally thought were very much in alignment with who you are as an individual. But we evolve as individuals. So what might be like the way in which you'd recommend individuals think about this, that there's this fear of judgment, right? Where they might say that 10 years in, 15 years in, I don't align with this company anymore. How can individuals empower themselves with recognizing that we're a constant evolution as human beings, and it is okay to realign ourselves with places and spaces that most align with this evolved human being without this fear of judgment?
Many years ago, I read a report on stress in the workplace. And what this report identified was that the single biggest cause of stress in the workplace is not the amount of work you have to do. It is not the hours you have to work. It is when, because of the environment and the culture of the people around you, you are forced to do your job in a way that does not come naturally to you. Because that is the definition of stress, being forced to operate in a way that is not the way you would choose to. And we all know when we're undergoing that stress, and that is the single biggest signal that says, get the fuck out.
You're just so articulate, first of all. So you're just like, I'm trying to catch up with your last thought as you're like giving me this other like beautiful set of like absolute gems.
Yeah. And I feel like Cindy is an HR leader. Of course, I'm neck deep in SHRM data, I'm neck deep in all these. And you're absolutely right. And there's values are certainly one and strengths are another. So you might be value aligned, but let's say you're in a role where you need time to think, but you're in a role that doesn't give you that time. Like you have to be someone that's quick on your feet. That's going to burn you out as well. So two places that you have to match in how you're naturally wired, but also 100% agree when you're misaligned to your values. And I've certainly been there myself where I'm being tasked to do things as the HR partner. And I'm like, man, this is gross. I don't agree with the way we're treating our people. Will certainly cause you that sleepless nights. That's when you get the active stress. And you're absolutely right. We need to start developing these internal early warning systems to be like, hey, warning, something, either speak up and work yourself out of this or speak up and maybe it doesn't go anywhere. And then that's your indication to pivot. So I think that's such a crucial point. And to piggyback on that a little bit, you made this comment about fear. And I can't remember if it was your TEDx talk in Greece or, which I loved, by the way, or there was another one that I read, but you specifically said about this fear of what other people think of you is the single most paralyzing dynamic. And I can tell you, working and coaching women specifically, we get so paralyzed by this, oh my God, what will people think? So you talked about a way to overcome fear is by taking action.
What I talked about earlier, that the only way to live your life is to live and work your values, is what overcomes the fear of what other people will think. Because then all that matters is that you know you're being true to you. And when you make that your North Star, you don't give a damn what anybody else thinks. But I'm a great believer in microactions because I believe that change happens from the bottom up, not the top down. Every one of us, every day, taking microactions, and microactions are very small, simple, easy to do actions, so easy to do, why wouldn't you do them? Every one of us taking microactions every day to change what we want to see change, cumulatively, all of those microactions add up at scale to enormous impact. And there is one microaction that I say to everybody, this is the simplest microaction to do because it doesn't need any talent, expertise, experience, but it is the microaction that will have the most dramatically beneficial impact on your life and your career going forward. And anyone can take this microaction, and it is very simply say what you think. No, really. Say what you really think. Because we don't. Because every day, especially as women, we are man-interrupted, mansplained to, talked over, held back, not listened to, not heard. And we often cease to say what we think. But it's incredibly important that we say what we think, because first of all, that is how you bring your value to the table. You are hired, you are employed to contribute what you uniquely can contribute to this business. If you do not say what you think, you are not doing that. But secondly, because saying what you think is, again, a great way to be your own filter. If you say what you think, if you contribute your unique perspective, and it is not welcomed, and is not listened to, it's not appreciated, and it's not valued, then again, get the fuck out.
So let's unpack that. I just love you're so sure about this. You're just like, hey, just say what you think. Get the heck out of there. Get the fuck out of there. Get out of there. But the reality is a lot of times, and we talk about this, they're like, hey, we'll give you a stage. Speak up, Archita. So they're like, all right, you got the mic. Archita speaks up. You're doing great. They clap for you. And then Archita starts amplifying the challenges that exist in the dark corners of this room that they don't want to highlight. And that's where they slowly dim the light on our cheetah and push her off stage, right? So for groups that tend to be underrepresented, you lived and you thrived in a man's world. Like the advertising world is ridiculous on so many different levels. And you do that now in the VC world. So how do you go in with this explosive approach and dismantle these like deeply ingrained power structures without becoming collateral damage in the midst of it all?
So alongside being an entrepreneur, I work as a consultant, a public speaker, and a personal coach. So I coach a lot of men and women. I coach everybody, but I coach a lot of brilliant women who have no idea how brilliant they are because for their entire careers, they've been held back by men, kept down by men, beaten down by men, had their careers sabotaged by men, had their ambitions derailed by men. And it's my job to show them how bloody brilliant they are and to enable them to get the fuck out of those circumstances. And the reason I'm being emphatic about it is because the only way is to get the fuck out. I'm half English, half Chinese. My English grandmother was a wonderful woman, very influential on me and my sisters in our childhoods. And she was Christian, but she was very interested in Buddhism. And she used to quote these Buddhist sayings to us. And I've always remembered one that I've had occasion to repeat many times since. My grandmother used to say, "The fool says evil cannot touch me, but drop by drop the pitcher fills." And what I say to this woman is, you may think you can live with those microaggressions, those micro-sexisms, those micro-racisms. And I'm here to tell you that every one of those, drop by drop, is destroying your soul. Get the fuck out.
Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Cream. If you are a corporate girly and you are struggling, you're feeling stuck, maybe you're feeling underpaid, overqualified, you're struggling with your boss, or bigger yet, you're even trying to clearly articulate what it is that you want from your corporate career, I am the coach for you. So if you're ambitious and you've got goals to accomplish and you want to accomplish them quickly, check out my website, oliviacream.com. I would love to help you reach your goals.
Hi, everybody. I'm Archita Fritz, your other host of the Embracing Only podcast. If you're ready to leave corporate or you've changed a couple of corporate jobs and want to start a profitable side brilliance, you've made the decision, but you feel unsure of the next steps, here's how I can help you. I can guide you through a successful transition to entrepreneurship to help turn those ideas into profit. So reach out to me on LinkedIn or visit me on architafritz.com to accelerate your empowered transitions. Now, back to the episode.
Here. I'm having a small party in my chair because I've been there myself. And sometimes I think what we're battling here is a lot of societal norms, right? Because I think Archita and I both happen to be immigrants. And sometimes the immigrant mentality is you stick it out, you grind it out, there's no quit in you, you figure it out and you make it work. That could not be more damaging from an advice perspective. And now I realize it in my 40s, and I love to say the 40s are the best decade because you reach a point and you're like, I do not care, right? You're so comfortable with yourself. But I think for a lot of our younger women that listen to this podcast that might find yourself in that, okay, should I be gritting it out? Should I just be grinding it out? Should I just accept this because everyone has told me that it just is what it is, grit it out, grind it out. Don't do it. It is time to pivot. But before you pivot, I think, Cindy, the message is so important here. Before you pivot, you really need to understand what your values are. So you don't jump from the frying pot into the fire because you just pivoted. There was another distinction that you made that I found so powerful. And you said there is a danger in thinking that shared values and shared thinking are the same thing. They absolutely are not. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Sure. Shared values are fundamentally the way you believe in approaching life, the way you believe in dealing with other people, the way you believe in conducting yourself. And shared thinking is similarity of thought, And by the way, in a lot of cases, thinking the same as somebody else may not be a bad thing. But if you want to get the most innovative and disruptive ideas in a business context, then having a bunch of people in your company who all think the same way is not a good idea. And it's why I talk to people about the fact that at the top of every industry is a closed loop of white guys talking to white guys about other white guys.
Yes.
And those white guys are sitting very pretty. They've got their enormous salaries, their gigantic bonuses, their big pools of stock options, their lavish expense accounts. Why on earth would they ever want to rock the boat? Oh, they have to talk diversity. They have to appoint chief diversity officers. They have to have diversity initiatives. They have to say the word diversity a lot, especially in public, a lot less now. There's been a backlash. But secretly, deep down inside, they don't want to change a thing because the system is working just fine for them as it currently is. It's like the old joke about the light bulb. How many therapists does it take to change a light bulb? Only one, but the light bulb has to really want to change. And in every industry, the light bulb does not really want to change. And that is why you get homogeneity of thinking, homogeneity of staffing, and homogeneity of the way you do business. And that's precisely the environment that I'm saying get the fuck out of.
Yes. I love that light bulb quote for sure. You can't really transform the gap they're choosing to put up for themselves. And I remember my own personal journey as I was trying to leave a toxic workplace. I think for about 8 months or 18 months, I can't remember anymore. I was like, I'm going to figure this out. It's a picture, your beautiful saying from the Buddhist quote that you shared. I was willing to continue to take those cuts. I was like, okay, this is fine. It doesn't bleed as bad. It doesn't bleed as bad. It doesn't bleed as bad. Until I think Olivia was like, Archita, it's a gaping freaking wound. Like, what the heck are you going to do about it? Get the hell out. And then I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like, it's going to turn into sepsis, basically, if I don't get the hell out. And then I did. And it takes a lot of courage to do it. Now, once you get on the other side, like one of the things you see a lot of is, you hear a lot of in the world, women specifically, is the tallest poppy syndrome, where women cut down women when they're like growing, like building, whatever. Men do it a lot as well, but women do it a lot to each other. So as women are navigating these transitions or going and blowing shit up and building of themselves, you talk about this idea of collaborative competition. How can we activate that even further and even more to truly help more women get out of these spaces to go build better spaces for others to thrive like themselves?
So first of all, I think it's very important to say, and this is something I've been saying for literally decades, the syndrome of women being bitches to other women is a syndrome that is entirely caused by men. I call it Highlander syndrome. There can be only one. When you as a woman work in places where there's only ever room for one token woman on the leadership team, on the board, on the project, that is what forces women to compete with other women, a dynamic that I deplore. And it is entirely the fault of the men. It's not the fault of the women. Obviously, you can choose how you respond to that. But in the first instance, the root cause of that is male-dominated working environments. Secondly, honestly, getting the fuck out does not require any courage whatsoever. It just requires not being willing to put up with that shit anymore. And so that is why I encourage women, and again, I've been saying this for decades, I encourage women to get very angry. And I encourage women to get angry because we are never encouraged to get angry. Nice girls don't do that.
Yeah, right. And I have to double click on this here for a second, Cindy, because I think anger is such a powerful emotion. Because you're right, it does push you, right? You have to be so careful about this angry Black woman trope that happens, right? Times I like simmer, like I'm like stewing inside. My face is pretty stoic in the moment, right? And I do think we as women have to have a little personal accountability where if you find yourself in a spot where you realize you're being forced into the one, there can only be one, right? And now you're gatekeeping the other women for the men. You have to stop and look in the mirror, though. The men create the construct, but it doesn't work if you don't play.
But to be perfectly frank, quite often you don't even have the power or the ability to play. I'm talking about the kind of environment where, because it is there can only be one, it doesn't matter how many women you put in front of the interviewing committee, they're never going to hire one. And by the way, I have been in this situation myself. Okay. And so it's not always up to you as a woman. When the boys' club is truly entrenched, when they've decided that there can be only one woman in whatever power circle it is, they will not let another woman in, no matter how much you advocate for that woman. Fact of life.
So I love that. So I want to bring this point home. Let's just wrap a bow in it. I think what you're saying, though, Cindy, is you took some steps. You did take some personal accountability initially to try to advocate for other women. And through those actions, found out it wasn't going to happen. And so you got the F out of there. So I don't want our ladies to get lost in translation here. If you are unsure if your environment is the one that Cindy is talking about, you have to put yourself out there and do some advocating for your fellow women. Now, if you get hit with a brick, nope, there can only be one, that's your sign to exit, right? We teach women, we take them through this exercise, whether to figure out, okay, you can stay and work in this environment. Here's just a strategy to make it better, because there are environments that you can navigate. Or is this one of those environments that you're with and you need to leave? So, but the first things first is to figure out what kind of environment that you're in. And if you're in the latter, get out of there. Get out of there.
Yes, and go a little bit like we talk about women, but there's this whole, like you're disrupting like ageism in the workplace on a next level. And I recently put forth a woman who's in her 50s or late 50s, early 60s as an advisory board member to a really young startup. She has got qualifications out the wazoo. Like they need her, they should have her. Like it's a no-brainer. 4 weeks go by and then I'm like, hey, did you reach out to her? And they're like, oh, we just don't think she's the right fit. So I messaged her. I'm like, did you have a chat? Did you have a chat? And she's like, no, they never even contacted me. So I go back to this guy and I'm like, you never even had a chat with her. Like you don't even know if she's not the right fit. And he's like, well, no, I saw the CV. And I mean, this is a CV people would die for. Like it's unbelievable. It's unreal. And he's like, I just don't think she's the right fit. How do you get past this point of absurdity? And this is your point about you can't control that piece anymore. But how do you start shifting that dynamic to be able to bring women who are so unfreaking believable into spaces that really need them and they've been discounted because they're over a certain age?
This is why I say to every woman, you have the responsibility to be the role model that you never had. Okay. The only way you're going to change, I'm assuming that young white male startup, is when he is surrounded by older female role models, proving that they are making a shit ton of money, doing brilliant business, etc. And the fact of the matter is he is not currently, because those women are few and far between, because they were never allowed to get that.
So for instance, I'm trying to do a lot of this matchmaking, right? So I'm always trying to shove it down the throat of being more diverse in your thinking.
Do not shove that woman down his throat because, and by the way, I've had some of these experiences myself. Recently, I think it's last year, so somebody approached me who is a nice guy from industry, working with a company, looking for a board member. And he said, they really need someone like you. And I looked at their business and he's right, they do need someone like me. And he laid out the situation from which I could see that this was a leadership team of all white men, which in this particular industry for what they were building was extremely inadvisable. And our mutual acquaintance said to me, would you be willing to do this? And I said, well, first of all, I need to be paid. I want to make damn sure that the money, but I'm willing to have that conversation. Yes. And he went, great, I'll talk to the CEO, whatever. And I never heard again for a long period of time. And then I think I ran into this guy and went, I'm sorry, they decided to move a different direction. But honestly, I didn't care because I just knew from that fact he would not have implemented anything I recommended. Why would you force a woman into that horrible situation?
Fair point.
Don't do
Done. That. I'm going to save Nikki the pain of finally having to decide 1 minute in that she has to get the fuck out after she speaks to them. Oh.
Cindy, I could not be more aligned with your perspective. It's interesting. Archita and I take very different approaches to some of the stuff. And I think it could potentially be my military background, why I take a little bit of a firmer approach. And I personally don't believe in arguing with idiots. So if you have,
absolutely.
right? So if you have, specifically in the DEI space, we know for a fact at this point that in order to have innovation, you need diversity of thought. So you need diversity, right? Diversity breeds innovation. But then you get into the space arguing with these companies about why you should be hiring diverse folks so that you can capture diversity of thought so that you can have organic growth through innovation. And especially in the space today, where especially in the US, but also in UK and France, we're going backwards at the most rapid pace ever. That are like, we are not arguing with idiots, right? Because you have to want to change. A DEI policy is not going to work. As a matter of fact, it's going to create this environment where you get someone that checks a box that brings in this super likely overqualified candidate to enter into this space for a photo op, but then they're silenced, they're surrounded by microaggressions, and it's just off for people like us that end up being a box check for, or some kind of PR stunt for companies. So when you think about where we are going as a society from a DEI perspective, and then you also think about how we're trying to create shared values and shared profits, what do you recommend to women that constantly play in these spaces, whether it's med device, whether it's advertising, whether it's engineering or STEM in general? What do you say to those women that constantly find themselves running into brick walls, especially in these times?
It's very simple. I say start your own industry. And what I mean by that is start your own business, but I deliberately articulate it like that because when you start your own business, you can design it to work any way you want it to. You can design in the workplace culture in which you thrive. You can design in the work-life balance that you want to operate. You can design in the business model as how you want to make money. And when you do that, you are starting the industry we all want to live and work in. But the other very practical reason I say start your own industry is because we have not even begun to see how every single industry can be reinvented through the female lens. And here's the thing about that closed loop of white guys talking to white guys about other white guys at the top of their industry. Those white guys cannot innovate by definition, because homogeneity is the opposite of creativity and innovation. But they sure as hell can afford to acquire innovation. And so when you reinvent an industry through the female lens, you don't even have to run your business effectively for very long before giant company X will buy it from you for an absolute goddamn fucking shit ton of money. And that is the quickest path to wealth creation for any woman in any industry.
Can I just carry you around in my pocket all day?
And so in that context, I want to recommend to our listeners that after you've heard this podcast, you go to theyGotAcquired.com. So theyGotAcquired.com was started a couple of years ago by a wonderful woman, Alexis Grant, who got completely fed up with seeing all the big news of Silicon Valley unicorn exits of billions of dollars. She started theyGotAcquired.com to be a media center and a resource platform for business exits and acquisitions on a scale from at the low end $200,000 to at the high end $50 million. The point being, at every point along that spectrum is life-changing money for founders. So I recommend go to theyGotAcquired.com, sign up for their weekly newsletter, because I found their newsletter very educational. What They Got Acquired demonstrates is that anything you start has acquisitional value for somebody. And so every week, Alexis produces new case studies. This is some time back, but the guy who started a tech design blog, one-man operation, giant tech company bought it for $1 million. Or a group of co-founders launch something. 1 week later, American Eagle acquired it. There are many very different models of business acquisitions that are not the build it for years and years and years, and then et cetera, et cetera. And so, yeah, that's what I recommend. Start your own industry, get acquired, get a shit ton of money, move on to the next thing.
I love it. I think I actually signed up to this after you posted about this on LinkedIn, and it like opened up. I love it because it's just, well, we're not taught any of this stuff in school unless you go to, even then, you're not really back a few decades and you were just leaving the advertising industry and you were getting ready to go build your own industry. And someone else is starting that journey right now. Where do they begin? Because I feel like we need to learn a new language when we're going out there and getting ready to build our own industry. And you can do a lot through trial and error, learn, do, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes you're not in these spaces where the bros of the world are like having these conversations, or like they're having these conversations where they're speaking Latin and you're like, I speak English and I don't comprehend. So where do we start where do we begin?
Seriously, fuck bro language, speak your own. Seriously, why do you want to be in those bro circles? That's the worst place to be. Why do you want to speak their language? Speak your own, and you will attract to you other people who speak the same language.
Oh, you have so much clarity. Okay, tell me this, Cindy. You have so much unreal clarity around, because it's not like you're wavering around this. You're just like so clear about building your own. Where did that come from? Like, where did that begin? Because there had to be seeds like that you have planted many, No,
it's very simple. 64 years of life.
So were you always like this, Cindy? Out of curiosity, because I think everybody goes through a journey, right? So was it like in your 20s? You were like, nope, this is me. No. Was it in your 30s? At what point in time did you get here?
No, I've always been myself. But literally, guys, I am talking about the advantages of growing older. 64 years of life.
And I think that is the mic drop moment right there. And you went and built this lovely shirt that you have on, Make Love Not Porn, right? So you built this platform here where you're trying to drive and build sex positivity, but then you kind of tie it into the workplace as well. Bring us into like that journey, and why were you so passionate? I see so much value as a parent of what you're trying to build with the Khan Academy of Sex Education. I cannot tell you how thankful I am for you building that. But tell us about your journey, but why you started this. Of course, I've read about it, but for our listeners as well, where you decided to start your own industry and disrupt an entire multi-billion-dollar industry your way.
Sure. So the answer is I didn't, in the sense that everything in my life and career has always happened by accident. I've never consciously, intentionally set out to do anything. My ex-boss at BBH, the agency I used to work at, John Hegarty, he has a wonderful mantra: do interesting things and interesting things will happen to you. And that's very much how I've lived my life. So my business came about because I date younger men. And 16, 17 years ago, long before anybody else realized this, I realized through direct personal experience that when we don't talk openly and honestly about sex, porn becomes sex education by default, in not a good way. I'm naturally action-oriented. I want to do something about this. 15 years ago, I put up on no money a tiny, clunky website at makelovenotporn.com that was a public service announcement, Porn World versus Real World. I launched at the TED conference in 2009. I became the only TED speaker to say the words "come on my face" on the TED stage 6 times in succession. The talk went viral as a result. And it drove this extraordinary global response to my tiny website that I had never anticipated. Thousands of people wrote to me from all around the world, and I realized I'd uncovered a huge global social issue. And so that was when I turned Make Love Not Porn into a business designed to do good and make money simultaneously, as I believe all business should be, around precisely that model of shared values plus shared action equals shared profit. And so today, Make Love Not Porn is the world's first and only user-generated, importantly 100% human-curated social sex video sharing platform. So like what Facebook would be if it allowed you to openly, healthily, sexually self-express, which it clearly doesn't. The way to think about us is, if porn is the Hollywood blockbuster movie, Make Love Not Porn is the badly needed documentary. We are a unique window onto the funny, messy, loving, wonderful sex we all have in the real world. And what we're doing is we are socializing, normalizing, and destigmatizing sex, bringing it out of the shadows into the sunlight to promote consent, communication, good sexual values, and good sexual behavior. We are literally sex education through real-world demonstration. I've fought an enormous battle every single day for the past 15 years to make this happen and to keep it alive. The only thing holding us back is lack of access to funding, which is why I hope every listener to this podcast, if they appreciate the work I do, will go to wefunder.com/makelovenotporn and invest in us there. Minimum investment is only $100, so it's affordable. Because, as you said, Archita, what that will enable us to do is build what I've had in the pipeline for 10 years, parents and teachers have been begging me for, which is makelovenotporn.academy, the Khan Academy of Sex Education. And by the way, that's sex education for 0 to 18-year-olds and all the rest of us, lifetime sex education. It's an aggregator hub for the best of the world's sex education content from educators, sexual health and wellness experts, therapists, etc. And it's massively needed because right now, we talked earlier about how the cause of DEI is going backwards. We are also going backwards because sex education is being censored and deplatformed and blocked and banned everywhere. And so the Academy is desperately needed as a centralized hub where I want to aggregate the best of the world's sex education content and enable you to search it by age appropriateness, cultural sensitivity. We will have Christian sex education, Muslim sex education, Jewish sex education, and by personal comfort level. Because that doesn't exist anywhere. The ability to pick and choose based on what you feel ready for, what you feel your child is ready for, what your classroom is ready for. And it's by providing that all in one place that I hope I'll then be able to have that permeate society in the way that it needs to.
I could not be more supportive of this, and I am running to the site to invest myself. And I will be spreading this amongst my countrymen as prolifically as I can, because I will tell you, especially in the dance hall culture in Jamaica and the violence against women and children that you're seeing an uptick in, I fully believe it is fundamentally rooted 1,000%. In the absence of sexual education.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. And Jamaica as a country tends to be quite conservative, tends to be either Catholic or Christian, so deeply religious. Nobody wants to talk about it. But then you go look at these kids in these clubs and the things that they're calling dancing. And you're like, what happened to us? And even the music that used to be so unifying, don't get me wrong, there's still a segment of the music industry that still is staying true to the love and community that founded reggae. But there's this whole section that is so sexually violent. We're coming to a close here, Cindy. You certainly are blowing shit up in the best possible way. And for our listeners, I just want to recap a couple of the high points here. Shared values, shared action will always net you shared profit. So go out, be authentic, vibrate in this world on the level that you want to be on, and your future will find you. Your village will find you. And when in doubt, if you get stuck, jump ship and pivot and go start something yourself. So Cindy, outside of the two things that you mentioned, is there any way that our listeners, if they would like coaching, if they want to do a speaking engagement, how do they get a hold of you?
Sure. So I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Cindy Gallop and at Make Love Not Porn. You can connect with me and follow me on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. And my email address is very simple. It's cindy@makelovenotporn.com.
Olivia, I just want to say one thing to all my 1.6 billion countrymen and women of India. If you love Shah Rukh Khan, for the love of God, go invest in Cindy's Make Love Not Porn. Like, we would get her way past 20 million. To you listening, if you love Shah Rukh Khan, no freaking reason not to, because we are the biggest fan right here. So thank you, Cindy. You are a blessing, and we are so glad that you continue to do what you are doing and continue to encourage all of us to blow shit up in our own space.
It's been a pleasure, Archita and Olivia. Thank you for having me on.